I am Tracy Holmes. I'm here because I came back to engineering and I'm scared all over again. You can find me at Tracy P. Holmes all across the board. I mean that, just type it in, I should pop up. And also, as an homage to the beautiful Suzanne who is here in the front row, you can also find me at VMware Open Source on Twitter. All right, so let's talk about me for a second. I've technically only been in engineering for maybe about 4 years, professionally for like 2.5, maybe 3. I've been in tech most of my working life. I started in Eng at HashiCorp. From Eng, I moved over to developer advocacy. And when I left, I was a developer advocate, and I've been at VMware as an open source engineer for a few months now. But I've been in open source for the entirety of my engineering career. Also, I found this and it was accurate for me. Every day the clock resets, your wins don't matter, your failures don't matter. Don't stress on what was, fight for what could be, because I'm very bad about staying in my head. If anybody knows if Sean Higgins has done anything bad, let me know so I can remove that quote later on. All right, so where this idea or this talk come from? I also have a bad habit of doing things like discovery talks. I get distracted really easy, and I have to force myself to learn something. So I'll pitch a talk thinking it won't get accepted, and it does. And ultimately, I have to learn the thing that I have to present on. So that's what this was, a case of my brain going, and we won't talk about what happened this morning with that brain. So this is the discovery talk. I discover how to do the thing while I'm writing a talk about the thing. Now, this is about blog process. Exactly, that's exactly what it is. My blog process is somewhere between beating my head and squirrel. I have like 60 drafts of blog posts somewhere in a markdown file in my old Gatsby site, like young lady in yellow here. Okay, you're me. And I'll go, oh, this is great, and I'll do it. And 3 years later, it's no longer relevant. And so, yeah, I think the most recent blog post I did was at my previous job, and that's because she looked at me and went, "It's due tomorrow. This is the last tomorrow." And I went, okay. So I don't tend to do well with blog writing or keeping up with it, or, but when I do it, so my last site, which I think I still need to update, was in Gatsby, which is Go based. Not Gatsby, Lord, Hugo, which is Go based. And it's really manual. Like I have to write the thing, do the markdown thing, stage the thing, serve the thing, publish the thing, put it back in drafts about 3 times because I said something I probably had no business saying in the first place, and then reposting it again. And then ultimately 3 years later, I haven't updated my site. So that's my current blog process. So I thought about, well, Terraform's good at like doing stuff, so why don't I use Terraform? So for those of you online who don't know what Terraform is or in the room, it's an infrastructure as code tool. It's popular for being able to do multiple things in one file at one time. So like if you need to configure and deploy, you can do the thing. If your job for whatever reason decided you need to use VMware vSphere provider, GCP, and AWS for some razzle dazzle, you can like do it all at once, deploy it all at once. If you want to order a pizza and tweet about the pizza that you order from Domino's with using Terraform, you can do that too, which I think is really cool. If that is very confusing to you, the way that I typically explain it, and my mom and my dad understand it, so I think it's like pretty okay, is Terraform is like a gated community or like a gated subdivision. And you know how you have like KB Homes, or like that when they're building like new subdivisions and stuff, or like whatever developer does the subdivision stuff in your city. So Terraform is like that particular gated community built by like one developer. You can pick whatever housing style you want. You want a 1-bedroom, a 1-story with 4 bedrooms, and 1.5 story with the whatever. It's all the same developer, but you're still in the same community. That's what Terraform is, like for the base of it. A provider for Terraform is basically a plugin that implements the resource type thingies, so you don't have to deal with doing custom API calls and stuff. So it does all the work for you. So in the previous example, the different housing types would be the provider. So that's what like the AWS, the GCP, that kind of stuff. Now, being that I said my parents can understand it, don't come at me about the example I just used. I use it as an easy explanation. That's my layperson explanation. And it may not be correct down to the comma, but it gets the point across. I saw some nodding heads, so I couldn't have been too far off the mark. So let me make sure I didn't forget something. All right, here we go. So I had a couple of issues. The only provider I found was actually the Medium provider. Here's what I don't like about Medium. One, the provider was hinky. I talked to the person that created it, and they said that there were multiple problems that they were having. API calls, things weren't translating the way that they should, that kind of thing. If you want to see how they created the Medium provider, funnily enough, they did that talk at ATO about 3 years ago. So if you type in Medium provider and Rosemary, that should pop up. The second issue is I don't really want to use Medium because since they changed the whole members only content thing, I feel like not everybody's able to pay. That's where I started, but like, I don't know, I don't like the direction they took. So no. So I thought about what about dev.to? Oh, come on. There we go. Did it slip on me? There we go. Yeah, dev.to didn't have a provider. All right. So the dev.to provider, well, how do you build a provider? So it's been my goal for a while to write a provider. And that's where the notion of a discovery talk reared its ugly head in the first place. How do you build it? I'm not trying to be that person, but if you search for how to build a Terraform provider at this point in the late 20s, and you use your favorite search engine, I promise you something that you want to use will come up in your preferred learning style. I don't learn well with video. If I type it in, that's literally what happened when I typed it in, and that's with just the past year. I also think that you all should put past year as one of your search paradigms, so you don't get like 5 million things. But yeah, there's something out there that will work for you in your preferred learning style because not everybody learns the same way. All right, so that said, I didn't actually do that search the way I just told you all to do it. I'm stubborn. So Terraform has a really, really great plugin SDK team that has I think three now of my favorite people on there. And they have a really nice quick start repo that you can use for like a template or scaffolding that pretty much fills in the blanks for you for a lot of things, all the way down to how to generate docs. And you can find it there. I love the team. They appreciate feedback, which is the other thing that I do love about them. If you find something in documentation that's not correct, something that's missing, you can ping them or go on their Discuss forum and they will respond. And so I'm very much in favor of people that respond, even if it's just hey, we're drowning and we're a 2-person team. We'll get to it, I promise. So that was the other thing. So since I had that and I decided to use that, now I needed to decide and find out if dev.to actually had an API, which I probably should have done that at the beginning instead of doing all the work on the back end. So let's go see what happened with that. So they do have one. And for those of you that want to go play around with it, if you go into your settings and you scroll down, you can generate an API. You can generate a token and do whatever you want. I think you used to be able to do anonymous calls with it, but there are, of course, rate limits and the number of calls you can do. But it's free. I say just get one anyway. So the problem I had with this was issue number one, it's still in its early stages. Most of it is only in beta. There are a couple of features that are in alpha. And then two, the API is built on top of Forum. There isn't a specific API for dev.to. I didn't want to wrangle with that if I didn't absolutely have to. So what I did was I kept the previous slides link for documentation purposes, did a bit more research, and we got to find something called GoForum, which is like forum for Golang. And it's a REST API wrapper for the Forum API written in Go. Did it do? Wow. Okay, so that slide, we're gonna read it just because I forgot I left it in as a template because it's kind of cool, because yellow is the color of gold, blue is the color of the clear sky and the deep sea, and red is the color of blood, which I shed this morning trying to fix my demo. All right, so this is what happened when I tried to build the thing. Look at the emojis. because that's how I felt. So it's a busy slide, but I needed to accurately convey the state of my brain at this point. Now, I'm going to keep this slide busy and let you know what we tried to do. We decided to test the basic stuff. So the very first thing we did was to attempt to pull a list of articles using the API, like whether it was a draft or published or whatever. That actually worked. You can see on the screen where that actually worked. That is why this slide is busy. And you're going to see it again. I, to this day, and one of the reasons I needed to do it anyway was I tend to comment on dev.to, like support people more than I write my own stuff because, you know, blog, squirrel. And so we did was we created a draft post as a test. It worked. You could pull it. You could pull a list of all the things. You just had to have the right keys. The other thing I ran across was documentation issues. So the repo didn't actually have docs outside of the forum docs. And so there was a lot of code-based diving that we ended up having to do to find out what in the world was going on. And I say we because the same person that wrote the medium provider actually tried to help me with this provider and figure some things out. The structs in this file that I'm going to click on is what we came up with. And Lord help me, and whatever deity of choice, I hope you don't see all of the other 50 million tabs I have open. Okay. That ain't y'all's business. No, I'm kidding. All right. We went through and we combed through all these structs to find out what would work and what wouldn't. And what I needed or what I didn't need. And after about 3 times of just adding 1 or 2, we realized I needed the whole thing. So that's what we ended up going with. Again, it worked. So here's where we're at. Remember when I told you you're going to get a whole bunch of your time back today? When I tell you that the demo broke when I got here, and I have not been able to fix it as of 2:03 p.m. today, it's because I couldn't fix it as of 2:03 p.m. today. So this is how I got here. And I'm so upset about this. All right. That whole distraction thing also applies to my learning. I'm sorry, people that are on live stream, you're also going to get a chance to take a bathroom break. I apologize. I have a bad habit of trying to make sure that everybody in every OS is represented. So when I started this, I started it on WSL, which was fine. I'm used to WSL. I built a desktop for a reason, so I was using it. Once we figured out what was going on with WSL, my work Mac was an Intel Mac. When I switched jobs, it was still an Intel Mac, but I tend to use a virtual Linux install to do the rest of my work. My personal Mac is an M1. They started not liking each other somewhere around last week when I started trying to tweak stuff. And the other thing that happened was in the midst of moving the job, Terraform went from 0.14 to like 1. Go bumped up a couple of versions. And then I had to learn what I was doing at my current job. So life happened. So what's going to happen is, I don't know, and Todd, don't kill me. If any of you are going to all day DevOps, hopefully the working part of this will be happening in the next couple of weeks. Like this is all I'm going to work on for the next 2 weeks because I feel really, really bad. Like absolutely horrible that this is not a working demo. But I'm going to tell you what I plan to have done and what I had on my stretch goal. So there will hopefully be some stuff in there for the Windows people. And I'm very beginner friendly. So if you just want to be able to use it, because I know a lot of beginners use dev.to, or you want to just dive into the code base, I'm going to have more comments than I probably need. I'm going to fix whatever I broke over the past few days and have this working over the next few weeks. And then my examples folder should have an example integration with Twitter so that whenever you post to dev.to, it'll GitHub Actions will also kick off a post to Twitter. That will also work if you decide to not use the dev.to provider and go back to the Medium provider. I will hope that you use the same integration, because the workaround for Medium is if you send it to yourself in a direct message, they do not count it as a view. So if you ever find an article you want to read on Medium, just throw it in a DM, click on it in DM, and it'll bypass the pipe. They built it like that for some reason. So I hope they don't change that. And so I lied. You're going to get 25 more minutes of your life back, because unless you have questions for me, and I will stand up here and answer anything you want to know, I promise, if I have an answer for it. that's technically the end of my talk. And as you will see, VMware open source is also on there, as I promised this young lady right here in the front.